Afrocentric study. Talk a lot about mother members of hello, I go to Everett High School and I'm a senior. She's also a part of PPM. When I came to America, I thought schools are safe and all that. High school isn't really a good place to go when there's so much bullying and problems. When I entered high school, I was excited because I know that I am making a good choice and I have dreams to achieve. With the bullying and names calling, it is really hard to focus on education because kids are getting like bullied, getting called names. Kids are getting judged by under like their beliefs and all of that.
They're like in the football game.
When me and my family first came to the US, I thought people would be much nicer, but people came pushing down. It's a good day. I didn't know anybody. In my freshman year, experience I was racism and African Americans doesn't have the thing, and whenever they pass by us, they start saying it's musty in here, and also judging our culture and everything.
Did y'all hear what she said?
Yes.
Okay. You want me- you want to- Julian,
Thank you, Julian.
when me and my family first came to the United States, I thought people would be much nicer, but it all came crushing down when I entered high school. I was a newbie at Everett High School, didn't know anybody except my friends. In my freshman year, I experienced a lot of racism and bullying in my, towards African American, telling us that we stink. And whenever they would pass by us, they would start saying, it is stinky, she's stinkier, right? And also judging our culture and our religion.
Thank you, Julian.
Her name is Colette. Are you talking to the mic?
Hi, my name is Colette and I live in Everett High School.
She goes to Everett High School. Real close to your mouth. You want me to? So first, when I came to America, I went to Gardner and I had a favorite teacher. Then they moved me to a new class, but I didn't like the teacher. I started getting bullied with and from the white kids. Let's give her a hand. Thank you all for being patient with me. Story. So her story continues. I didn't know English, so I couldn't ask to go to the bathroom. So I peed on myself. So I ran to the bathroom and they were talking about me and I had to go to the office and change everyone, do the whole day. Now I am in high school in Everett and I don't like it. I am going to school because of my parents. I don't like being around people because I am insecure about my body. People always calls me names. And is that Everina? Everina and I have been called names like Africans. We were in the bathroom and then we heard, do you guys smell like Africans? And Everina got mad, but we had to stay, out of trouble. And Everina writes, our parents think that we don't like going to school, but that is not the reason. How are we supposed to focus with the words and the bullying around us? It just makes us scared whenever we try to fight because the next day we're thinking that we might get shot.
Thank you, Everina.
Any other students here? So you can see the pain by us not listening, taking things for granted. Most of us, like we have so much capital, we're so blessed. We got our education. And look at these children. And we resort to data points. So I'm going to ask our first educator to come and share whoever they might need to come. We wrote a letter to the superintendent. We wrote a letter to the school board where we outlined the issues in and around many of the teachers that are resigning. And there was some discrepancy around the number. However, inside of that number, there were a tremendous amount of African Americans who reported, issues of being threatened and forced out, not following district policies, not being heard. So we want to give platform and space for that, right? Because these stories don't get told. It's like, oh, well, they're not performing, so they're getting a performance evaluation. So
all right, good evening. Well, I apologize. I'm probably gonna go about 1 minute early. My wife timed me, but I didn't know I had this, so I apologize beforehand. But my name is CJ Housel. I work in the Lansing School District. I've worked there over 15 years. As a former basketball coach in one of the local high schools, I witnessed and reported multiple discriminatory acts by an athletic director who was also overheard boasting about blackballing a local Lansing coach and making racial derogatory statements about a local Lansing family. During my coaching tenure, I also sent reports to administration that identified a small number of teachers in the building who were responsible for failing many of our ineligible athletes and asked the administration to look into the situation due to other allegations of discrimination made by the students. Eventually, I was approached by another district employee who overheard a plot to sabotage my evaluation, and so I brought this as a concern to the building administration who ignored it. During the last week of school, I finally received the evaluation, which was clearly sabotage. I refused to sign it until I met with the building administration athletic department, who did not respond. I then wrote a rebuttal and gathered evidence to debunk the falsified scores and took my grievances to the former executive director of the Office of School Culture, who then referred me to the former deputy superintendent after a scheduled meeting. The former deputy superintendent referred me to the LSEA union president, who seemed glad to meet with me until I emailed him the falsified evaluation along with my rebuttal and evidence. The union president then ceased to respond to my emails and phone calls, and I was later fired that summer from my coaching position. I then notified the former deputy superintendent of my discharge, who claimed he was unaware that the discharge took place. The former deputy superintendent called a meeting with the building administration, district athletic department, and new executive director of the Office of School Culture, as the former executive director resigned at my building at the time. I was excluded from this meeting. The new SC executive director then invited me to a separate meeting at a downtown administration building and took me upstairs to a private room. The OSC director then very aggressively told me that the department possessed the authority to reinstate me back to my position, but strongly advised me to walk away from the position, ensuring that reinstatement would also come with a hostile environment. And it was also insinuated that I would lose my administrative track status, as I had also been approached by the executive team member the previous school year and was encouraged to apply for the Inspire Leaders program as well. However, due to the severity of the discrimination taking place in the athletic department, I chose to retain my coaching position despite the executive director's numerous attempts to intimidate me from doing so. The OSC executive director then said I would be reinstated contingent to an improvement plan, which I also disagreed with due to the lack of integrity of the LSD athletic department. When I checked with the union rep in my building concerning the matter, I was forwarded an email from the union president stating that the union had decided that I was wrongfully terminated and that my position was already reinstated. Nonetheless, I was coerced into signing this improvement plan, which prompted me to file a complaint with the Michigan Department of Civil Rights for discrimination and retaliation. The OSC executive director made good on those bases along with the LSD that I would be walking into a hostile environment, as this certainly was the case going forward. I experienced unfair and harsh treatment at both my building assignment and at the OSC to the point that I became ill and had to go on sick leave. The building athletic director, who was said to have been addressed for the wrongful termination, also received a promotion to a district athletic director. While I certainly did lose my administrative track status at the time and continue to experience more discrimination as a support staff member and basketball coach. Now, one of the most egregious acts of the athletic department that I witnessed during my tenure as a coach was the athletic department not complying with the new MHSAA eligibility requirements to accommodate the hardships of the pandemic. And they were intentionally putting out inaccurate, falsified eligibility reports, which allowed the department to discriminate between who could and who could not participate in athletics. Unfortunately, I witnessed this discriminatory practice ruin the lives of many student athletes who were dependent on athletics as an outlet, motivation, and pathway to higher education. I seen clear evidence of this discriminatory practice taking place to the former deputy superintendent, former superintendent, human resources, and school board, but never received no response that would put a halt to the discrimination that was occurring even towards the student. Eventually, I was wrongfully terminated from my coaching position for a second time, while the investigation of my first complaint was still open, which prompted me to file a second complaint with the Michigan Department of Civil Rights again for discrimination and retaliation. Both complaints are still under investigation to this day, while I am still experiencing the hostile environment on many levels as threatened by the OSC executive director. At times, I have wanted to resign, as many educators, especially of color, have done in our district, but I have not been able to do so in good conscience, knowing what is happening to our students, staff, and community. Unfortunately, I have also witnessed these sorts of unfair labor practices and political attacks be launched on multiple administrators and educators of color in the district, forcing them to either resign or be terminated by the district.
Thank you, CJ.
Please write down your questions that you have. Hello, everyone. I'm W.J. Davis. Some of you may know me from correspondence or working with your children. I came to the district about 11 years ago. In that time, I had difficulty getting into the district because my name is Willie James Davis. Some people think I'm affiliated with Willie James Davis from the area. That Willie James Davis is known for speaking his mind and speaking up for people. So in that affiliation, which I'm related to no one in Lansing, in that affiliation, I was held up in the process, but made it through. In 1 year, I had the most difficult cases given as a student support specialist, then was behavior intervention monitor. They gave me children that were behind. And in that caseload I had, through credit recovery and other things, I worked with the parents. I went to the house and I brought kids up. They caught up. So in 1 year, I was invited down to the district and was given an opportunity to do something with athletics at Everett High School. In those 2 years, I'm sorry, I could have started with this. Believe nothing I say. I will give you evidence, or you can FOIA anything I say. Okay, with that, revenues increased at Everett. With that, student participation increased at Everett. GPAs increased at Everett. Not because of me solely, but because I don't fear communicating with other educators and administrators. I have written a board and told them about obstacles that were in my way. And one of those obstacles was put in charge of investigating my claims. So how would someone be put in charge that I've already implicated as being one of those hurdles? Second year at Everett, it continued. Non-funded sports and even raising outside revenues and creating opportunities for our kids that they never had. Like those who met LeBron James at his inaugural football game because they were invited to play our team through communications I had. Also, Mayweather's tournament in Grand Rapids for our basketball team to expose our kids to other elements outside of just the inner city play. When kids had problems athletically, or if they were cut from the team by grades, they were made eligible because I would go to the house and work with the parents. A lot of what I'm finding out is a lot of people fear the parents because of their ability to shun you off or push you away. I don't shun. I worked in Detroit working with kids that have been underprivileged and needing to stay by themselves or be raised by themselves through independent living. I was a senior clinician at Star Commonwealth, so work with difficult kids. I've also been a part of working with children of color and creating opportunity through that. Right now I'm at Atwood and we have a fantastic time creating opportunities. Last year alone, every child that ever been suspended, we met with every parent to get back in. If we couldn't, we go to the house and meet with them and figure out a plan for them, okay? I still work for the district and I wanna continue working for the district, all right? So I'm careful with what I say, but my emotions want to go. You follow me? My emotions want to go, all right? For 7 years since I've been pushed out that position at Everett as the athletic director, because I stood up for a child that was a runaway, that was done running by a coach. And they said, I'm not a team player because I didn't let it go. Because if I let that go, then she'll do another. All that is documented pieces. But what I found out the most from stepping in and listening to other people's story, that there's a lot of stories that connect. And until you talk, you will not know. Until you get together, you will not know. Because if you're kept separate, you will struggle forever to be common, which jumps back to something I remember, because we only have a short amount of time. Oppress me and keep me separate, I shall have no hope. Oppress me and keep me common, I shall rise. You want to stay together, communicate together, and come together to make things happen. If you divide or have yourself isolated, you won't know the stories that connect to your story. Plain and simple, in black and white. If we want to make change, you have to open yourself to know the truth and not let a few individuals, because I'm telling you now, it's just a few individuals that's been dictating a lot of things over the years, standing in the way. Period. Thank you.
On the contrary opinion, I ain't here to bash the district. Well, what I am here to say is, the district gave me a shot when I was a felon, brought me in, stuck their neck out for me, gave me a position. All the racist talk is kind of bothering me because I don't feel that, I don't see that. And I'm a straight shooter. I don't feel that, I don't see that. But what really stick out is what the kids was talking about. As far as the schools, the conditions of the schools and the things going on in the schools. I asked that we asked ourselves, is that a school district problem or a household problem? Is it a parenting problem or a school district problem? From what I see in the school, it's a parenting problem. It's not a school district problem. There's a lot of stuff need to be done at home that ain't getting done at home. We got kids, and the kids that was up here don't represent the whole district. We got kids you could never get in here. We got stuff going on all day that we deal with and handle that you couldn't imagine. So when I think of the district, I think of words like determined, focused, passionate. Cause I ride around and I deliver food. I ride around and I check on kids that don't make it to school and do due diligence and stuff like that. And they do way more than what I would do to make a kid come to school. They do way more babying and begging than I would do to make a kid come to school. Way more than they did when I was going to school. So if your kid ain't going to school and they ain't doing what they supposed to be doing, it's not a district problem. It's a parenting problem. And that's the truth.
It is unfortunate that we feel that if we tell truth sometimes, that people feel like we're trying to bash them. All we're doing is just telling our stories, that's all we're doing, we're not trying to bash. You all hold the power. You hold power. So we're not trying to bash. And so I'm gonna ask, Ms. Murphy, she would come and tell her story. And you know what's awful is the fact that we have to do this.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I'm actually not going to tell my story, because like you, I am a parent in the district. And I would like to tell the story of my children. I would like to tell the story of my community members who live right across the street from me. I would like to tell the story of my 6 nieces and nephews who are also school district children, all of whom have a very different story to tell, different from each other and different from this kind parent over here. I am so happy that that is your story, and it makes me smile because I live here and I want that to be all of our stories. Please excuse me, my voice is shaking just a little bit because this is scary. My niece and my nephew attended a school that had over 3 different principals in 2 school years. My niece and my nephew attend a school now where they are afraid to eat in the lunchroom. My daughter and my son went the entire first 2 months of school without a certified teacher. My daughter, who is so very wonderful, got a perfect score on her M-STEP test last year. When I say perfect, it's because there was no score over the highest score. That's what my type of problem. That was not because of me. That was not because of anyone in her classroom or not in her classroom. It was not because of her inability to have access to a school lunch every day. It was not because her 504 plan was probably not met. It was because she tried her very best. She had parents at home who knew what to say, how to say it, what we call savvy parents in our politically correct way in the world of education, who knows whose shoulder to tap on and which person in the building to talk to, which email to send in the state or in the local government. My child was lucky enough to have that. I also was a teacher in the district, and I taught over, I'm not even gonna count. I taught for 10 years, and so I had quite a few students. I would like to think about, as a group, what processes do we have in place to make sure that all of our kids get a perfect score on this standardized test? How do we empower all of our parents to do that? I don't think that we should teach parents how to parent. I actually get offended by that comment, by that idea, not comment. I think that our parents can teach us how to teach our children. One last story, because I promised her I wouldn't leave without sharing. A parent who is currently employed by the school district does not know who to talk to help her child have a safe day from beginning to end. This parent reached out to me because this parent was falling flat on getting a response. This parent says, and remember, I'm a third party, I don't know what is true. What is reported to me is that this parent contacted multiple levels of people that can make decisions to help get their family transportation and to get their family all in one school building. She has not been able to make that happen. Her students are now spread across 3 different schools. I'm sorry, 2 different schools this year. And they do not have transportation. She has to take one of her children all the way to the north side, and 2 of her small children go to a school on the south side.
One story that was elevated by a parent that moved from the Washington, Seattle, Washington area to the district, very new, and told the story and wanted the story to be elevated to the district that her daughter, just one of the high schools, playing on the girls volleyball team. To her unbelief, the girls volleyball team did not have matching uniforms, nor did they have knee pads. So they all had mismatched outfits and many of the girls didn't have knee pads. And because many of the families worked during the times of the games, what this parent shared was that the side where, where the parents are, many of those parents are working, so there was really no one supporting this. And then they would play a lot of the schools on the periphery, your DeWitts, your Oaklands. And the girls wrote and complained that on the court, the other girls were calling them niggers, telling them to go back to the jungle. And so here we have unmatched, so this ain't a parent fault. We got unmatched uniforms, they don't have knee pads. And these girls were being called all kinds of names on the court, and they were enduring that. They did not get the support. And the mother reached out to me to say, what kind of program does not provide adequate equipment for our students? What is happening? So that's one other story. And again, we're not here to bash, we're just here to tell stories. And so I wanted to lift up that story as well. I'm gonna ask my friend to come and tell his story briefly, if you will come. And again, this is, for me, I'm in a different position, but for all of these educated students who are standing here in front of the community, this is a big deal. And so let's welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. I've told my story at the board meeting, but I will say that I was born and raised here in Lansing, and I grew up in this district. All right. I left, of course, came back, but I always substitute taught in this district, since I graduated college, probably about in 2001. And once I was done doing the things I needed to do in my life, I figured it was time to give it back, right? So I came back in 2013 and created a program, Unleash Speed. And most people in the community know me as a track coach. That's what I've done. And I've trained a lot of athletes, Angela Anthony, Sean Foster, Demetrius Hollums, all these great folks that's from around here. That's what I want to bring to this district. And so since 2013 came rolling around, 2018 mostly, I started subbing a lot. I was retired, so I was able to substitute teach more. And all I wanted to do was bring an opportunity to these kids. That's it. I know what sports did for me. It made me see more than the four corners of my block. Okay, so I know what sports did for me and what opportunities it brought forth to me too. So I created a program through Unleashed Speed where the kids would learn to get developed and learn how to train properly and learn the skill. There's a lot of talent in Lansing, but there's no skill here. So I created a program, and I pitched this program to Ben, along with another colleague. Created the program. It was a dream job. I'm able to train all the kids in the district. And as time went on and whatnot, things got a little shaky. One of the things that when we first had our meeting was, listen, no kids from other districts will come to this district to use our program. Great, sweet, that's perfect, makes sense. As time went on, this wasn't the case. Another individual was allowed to bring another kid from another district. I try to address this issue to my immediate supervisor. Kind of ignored, but it is what it was. One thing I wanted to do was just train. Just wanted to train kids, give opportunity. All right. And so as time went on, during PD in the month of March, PD for the school district, I went to the office of my supervisor, and she introduced. There was another young lady there, a nurse, and she introduced me. She said, "This is the poster child for ADD," and I was taking it back for a second, and I was just like, okay, so, and I asked her what I needed to ask her, and I left. As time went on, a couple of weeks go by, I kind of dealing with this whole thing going through my head, like, what's going on? Or would she say that? And there was, I'm not gonna say this. As time went on, I asked a couple of folks in the district their advice on what I should do, and they gave me their advice. And so I just was like, whatever, I'm just gonna file a grievance. So I filed a grievance, and but grievance was filed. They went through the investigation, and soon after, 3 days after, it was over. They found out she wasn't. There was preponderance of evidence. There was nothing happened. About 3 days later, they come to the office, tell me that pack my stuff up, give my keys, my badge, everything. You're on paid administrative leave. I was already stressed out from some things that were going on already with the program because the program wasn't as supposed to have been what I thought it was going to be. That stress, my daughters, things they were going through, and it just didn't make sense for me to just continue on with this thing. So I kind of resigned. All right. So June 9th, I'm done. And then so I just go back to subbing again. This is what I was doing before. I was happy doing that. And I'll help with my program. Unleashed Speed, just give the kids the opportunity to do that. What I was doing before. But come August, I go on Red. I apply for. I get a position, a long-term position. But then the next day it gets canceled, and I'm wondering like, what is going? Okay, maybe they got a teacher. Doesn't matter. So I got another one. They canceled it again. Another one was canceled. So I called edu staff who employs the district with some of the substitute teachers. I called them. They said that no, the district actually put you on exclude you from subbing. I'm like, what? So that was that, and I thought it was retaliatory. So of course I filed with this EEOC, civil rights. So, and that's my story, but I want you guys to know that I just wanted to give the kids the opportunity. That's all I wanted to do. All right. All I wanted to do was train these kids, give it up to them, show them that, yes, you can learn discipline through sports. Yes, you can learn to get opportunity through these sports. You know what I mean? By having the skill and the talent that you have and using it to your best of your ability. Don't let you use the talent. Don't let the talent use you. That's what I always tell the kids. But it was unfortunate that this happened. But like I said before, my work won't be done. I'm still gonna keep training. But that's my story. It's just retaliatory, I think, and the tactics that they did, some other small things that they did were pretty, to me, were just kind of damning, you know what I mean? So.
We some table work together. We always end with some table work together. I do want to say to the board members and the superintendent and the community, I am getting text messages from teachers that are still working. And they're saying, thank you, for the first time we feel like someone is elevating our voices. There are those, and I hate, that's just my role. I just got to play my role. And they're afraid to actually come forward and speak because they're still in the district. And specifically the issue that they're dealing with is the discrimination toward, Black administrators, Black teachers, and Black students. To the point that some schools are still looking for curriculum. And I can give you the names. And so there's a lot happening that people are actually afraid. So they come to a pastor, they come to a community organizer to one level over and say, can you help elevate this? Because people are still working. Their livelihood matters. And so I wish they could just be bold to come and say, this is what I'm going through. But when your livelihood is on the line, you have to make different choices. So I'm going to ask our sister to come in 5 minutes. And I think this will be our last story.
Thank you, and good evening. My name is Barbara Tate. I know I have several parents of students that I had over the years. I see several of my colleagues. That's another one over there. And lots of friends, former administrators and former teachers that I've worked with. Again, I'm Barbara Tate. School year 2023-24 would have been my 50th year in education. I spent 49 years as of June 16th, 2022. I am a tenured Lansing teacher. I am one of those teachers who was under the court order of the 1972 to the 1976 NAACP versus the Lansing School District for the lack of Black teachers. I was a third grade teacher at Willow Street School when I was granted tenure. Janetta Graham was my principal, so I am a tenured Lansing teacher. I worked in Lansing for 21 years. And at the end of the 21 years, I went to a neighboring school district to be an administrator. When I wrote my letter of resignation, Dr. Lawrence McQueen, who was assistant superintendent, I didn't know at that time, but he didn't accept my resignation. And I went to a school to be the administrator of a 5-6 building. The next year I went to the 7-8 building. At the end of the second year, Dr. McQueen called me and said, Barbara, are you ready to come back? And I said, no. He says, I didn't accept your resignation. I am holding it. And I said, oh, but Dr. McQueen, I'm learning so much. It's my first year in the middle school. I really would like to stay and learn some more. He said, it's not usual. He says, but I will grant you a third year of leave. He said, but at the end of the third year, then I have to accept your resignation. And I said, okay. He did call me at the end of the third year. And he said, well, are you coming back to Lansing? And I said, oh, Dr. McQueen, I'm still learning. I'm ready. I'm not ready to come back. And he says, I have to accept your resignation. I said, but I promise you, Dr. McQueen, I don't know when, I don't know where, I don't know how, but I'm coming back to Lansing and I'm going to bring everything I know back to Lansing. I am a Lansing teacher. When I was in that other district and they would bash Lansing, I'd say, whoa, 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 whoa. I might be on the plantation, but I ain't of the plantation, okay? I am a Lansing teacher and I've always been loyal as a Lansing teacher. So I stayed out in that school district and retired, but then I came back working with a group after school. Well, last year at the excuse me, 22-23 school year, I went to North School, and I'm gonna give names, okay? I'm not gonna talk about, well, this one, no, I'm gonna give names, and you can back up what I'm saying. Find out if it's true. I went to North, and I was a sixth grade teacher. At North, my sixth grader said, Miss Tate, we ain't never had a black teacher before. I said, well, you got one now, right, Aaron? Yeah, you got one now. And we had a wonderful year. But on the 28th of April, Mr. Rodriguez, Mr. Pena. Sorry, because you were there when I was there. Yeah, we go way back. Anyway, Mr. Pena called me in and he said, Mrs. Tate, what is your certification? I said, K-8, all subjects. And I said, K-8 administrative. And he said, okay, I need you to be teacher in charge. And I said, what? He said, don't ask me about your principal. Don't ask. He says, I need you to be teacher in charge. So May 1, I was in the office running the building because our principal was absent. I don't know why she's absent. I just know she's absent. And I'm running the building. Midway through May, we had 3 teachers called in by Mr. Pena and HR. And I happened to be walking down the hall and I saw one teacher just in tears. And I said, what's going on? And he said, and I said, you can't go back to class looking like that. I said, your class is covered. Go take care of yourself and go back to class when you can do it. That happened to 3 teachers. I thought everything was smooth. And that teacher's in this room, so you can check it out. Anyway, on June 1, I got an email saying to me, we need to have a meeting from Mr. Pena again, and you might want to bring union representation. And I said, okay, well, I called the union and they said, you're not part of the union. But it didn't matter. In 50 years, I've never had to have union representation. As principal, I've told teachers you might want to do that, but never me. But it didn't matter. I went in. I said, but I can't come at 11:30. I have lunch duty. He said, cover it. I said, okay. And I covered as the lunchroom covered. I went to the meeting and I had papers shoved across the table at me. We want you to sign this letter of resignation. I said, for what? Now I'm running the building, teacher in charge. And I was told low test scores. Well, at North, they've had low test scores since 2018. Ironically enough, at the end of last year, the test scores rose. They weren't magnificent, but they did rise, okay? And I signed it because I didn't want to be Shay Moss or Ruby Freeman of the Rudy Giuliani scenario. I felt threatened, and I was told if I didn't sign it, I was going to be fired. I ain't never been fired from a job. I signed it. And as soon as I signed it, need you to get back in the office and run the school. Oh, and I also need you to take another week to make sure everything's tied up. CA60s, teachers turn in their so forth, work and so forth. And I did. I love the Lansing School District. I love my principal. But what I want you to know, looking around, I noticed Black females were getting the X across this district. Black females. And the reason I was able to go in and be teacher in charge, because our principal had set a tone where it was conducive to good learning. And some of the administrators in this room have been in that building and know last year was conducive to good learning. And I was able to step in and carry on where she left off. So what I want you to know is, I'm a taxpayer, but my concerns are about other educators who have had this kind of treatment and our children. Our children. Thank you for your time.
That I have to speak. And again, we're holding this space and 3-4 minutes.
Hi, my name is Kaylin Jones. I was not gonna speak tonight. I've been on leave with the district since April 20th. And at this point, the district is not responding. So the reason I'm standing up here is because my students, I would want them to be able to speak up for themselves. And if I'm telling them to speak up for themselves, then I need to stand up here and speak up for myself. And those were the kinds of things that I was trying to instill in my students when I was the principal at. So I'm standing here today as, like Claude, born and raised in Lansing. Born and raised right down the street. When my father passed away, that's my house. So I was teaching and working in Washington, D.C. And when my dad got sick, I said, okay, I can do the same thing at home. So I came back home and I love my students. You know, I love the Lansing School District. I taught at Everett when I first got back here. I taught at Wood Creek. And then I did the Aspiring Leaders Program. I worked at Sexton as the school level improvement coordinator. And then I was principal at North. And when I say that my students brought such joy to me in the morning, and we were excited to see each other in the morning, and to send them home at night and just see them throughout the day. When I was gone, they would say, Ms. Jones, where were you? And so the reason I'm standing here today is because what have my students done? I disappeared after April 28th. I was not allowed to speak with them. I was not allowed to speak with my staff. I was not allowed to speak with parents. And so I'm standing here today because I never, throughout this whole process, wanted my students to feel like they were abandoned. Because they depended on me and they depended on the other teachers in the building. And so the communication, just the callous nature with which I was ripped out and there was no explanation to me or my students. That's not fair. That's not fair to them. And that's not fair to put that extra burden and pressure on the school community. All I wanted was transparency. When I was sent home, I was at peace because I know I had done nothing wrong. But it was never explained to my students and their parents or teachers. So I'll stop there. I'll stop there.
We come to the final portion of tonight.
Oh, that one global meeting, a meeting I told you about. So I'm watching it online.
Hey loves, please mute yourself. Oh, we just lost Mordecai. We don't need you muted.
Yeah, they muted KT's mic. It muted his mic.
Been wrongfully dismissed and discharged, that they received their jobs back with back pay. And that a full investigation by the board be launched into why policies and procedures were not followed and the impact that this has had across our district. And so we'll outline that in the next letter. But what I'd like to do now is for you to turn to the person next to you. And what we want to ask is the fundamental question: What does a school that is safe look like? That is a safe haven for teachers, administrators, and students? What does a school that is a safe haven for staff and students look like? And we're going to give you a few minutes to talk about that. What is a school that is a safe haven for students, parents, teachers, and administrators? What does that look like? So just turn to the person next to you, and you all can have that. And we want you to begin to write some of your thoughts down as we begin to build together what we need. What is a school that is safe for teachers, parents, and administrators look like?
This is great. Thank you. Yes, drop your responses in the chat. If you'd actually like to come off of mute and share, please raise your hand, and I think we can accommodate you. Just want to lift up some of what we're seeing: students feeling safe, welcoming, and values diversity. Students are not labeled and or defined by one action or the actions of their peers. Students and teachers being able to speak up without fear of retaliation. Everyone feels happy and empowered to learn important things and to contribute to the community. Supportive for all. What does a school that is a safe haven for students, parents, and staff look like? Yes, keep dropping these little love notes. Community involvement in schools, yes. Transparent. Concerns, complaints, issues are taken seriously, and solutions are actually sought, whatever that looks like. Stop ignoring voices and sweeping things under the rug. Their deans' bus rides to and from school are not harmful or dangerous. Recognizes differences as a value add. All students are treated fairly and receive the same consequences for actions. Stop the culture of parent blaming and shaming. Call them in and not out. And I'm going to put my little star next to that one. These are all wonderful. Oh, we have someone from Benton Harbor joining us. Awesome. I see such beautiful themes: fairness, value, accountability. Yes, accountability across the board, including executive and administrative leadership. Students who are unhoused are considered in planning. Families are supported by the district. What does a school that is a safe haven for students, parents, and staff look like? We've heard stories tonight about what it doesn't look like. By the power of our words, we're reshaping, reimagining, and building anew. Families are supported by the district. Representative of the full community. I just want to go back to students who are unhoused are considered in planning. A safe haven is true recognition that there is an issue. Until that happens, nothing will be resolved. Absolutely, transformation begins with truth. For those of you who've been a part of the Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation process, we're in it right now. This People's Assembly grew out of our coming together across sectors to name that we actually have a problem and to face the history of how we got here and why we are still here. Being accountable means those in higher level administration positions must acknowledge and admit there is an issue. Yes. Families, staff, and students have a space to speak up without fear. Resolve processes in place. Schools as safe havens.
We built together, we are working on the civil rights legislation of our time, and inside of the brief act is education justice. There's an entire section on transformative justice, on you name it, right? But it's a comprehensive breakdown on what a safe haven school in the district and what things the community needs. We're inviting community to help build that with us. And we are starting with number 4 here in Ingham County. We're calling it the Ingham Breathe Act, and it's about how do we repair the harm done to these babies that came and spoke to all the students. And so this is a part of repairing the harm. It's accountability. It's hearing the stories. It's learning and listening. So this isn't a rebuttal back and forth, or this is what we're doing, this is what we're trying to do. We never get the opportunity to hear these stories. And I can tell you that there are a whole lot more, and people, I didn't realize it until tonight, how heavy this is to come and stand in front of the superintendent and board and to tell your story. And so, again, we're not here to blame parents. Anybody that's had children know, at some point, children do some things that you don't agree with. They ain't got nothing to do with how you are a parent. I've got 4 children, 2 that are graduated from college and everything else. And so we're not here to blame parents. Every time we have this discussion, we always blame black parents, but you never blame white parents. You don't blame them in Grand Land, Oklahoma. You don't ever have that conversation. It's always black parents. We're not here to bash parents. We have systemic issues. So the second question that we want you to kind of wrestle with was, how did this story impact you? How did this story impact? Were you checked out? Were you in, like, what were the common themes? So you got 3 minutes to kind of talk about how did this experience? Someone walked up to me and said, "This is heavy, Ben. This is heavy. This feels heavy." And so how did these stories impact? You got 3 minutes.
We have more coming into the chat. A safe haven starts with administration. They have a duty to address and enforce equity issues. If they don't foster that and are not passionate about it, all of this means nothing. No one from the board denying anyone's experiences. What made you feel safe when you were in school? As a parent, what makes you feel like your child is safe and makes you feel safe? If you're an educator, what does this look like for you? Leadership sets the tone. Representation made me feel safe. Open communication, good, consistent communication. Seeing folks from my community. When my child has a teacher who cares deeply for him. Oh, the chat is moving. Let me come back. When my child has a teacher who cares deeply for him and treats him like her own. Those are always my favorite teachers. Full staffing. I feel like so many of these issues come up when positions are not filled. Communication is key. These stories hurt, but I know they are true. It is painful. We have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, or nothing will change. Seeing teachers that look like me. And in order for us to feel safe and confident, there has to be some authenticity. We have words like fairness, values, authenticity, communication, caring, seeing, being seen, representation, leadership, equity, passion.
What was I gonna say? I have a senior moment. Yeah, we're about to close. That's a bad word for a preacher, but that happened 3 times. Done. So we want to have a brief share out of the first question, what is the safe school? And we're just gonna copy, we got folks that are taking notes. So who wants to start over here and just kind of shout it out? What does the school that is a safe haven for the community look like? Because that's what we're building. All right, right here, we got village. Raise your hand and just call it out. What did you all talk about over here?
Community involvement in the school.
Community involvement in the school. Yep. What'd you say? A happy place to be. Accepted.
Safe place.
Emotionally and physically safe.
Emotionally and physically safe. A safe place for people to advocate for themselves. Yes? Black male presence within the school, right here.
But the school does not look down on parents when they, also the schools feel like students are being added now, like they're from.
Absolutely. Schools, the decriminalization of schools. I saw your hand in the back. Yep.
Administrative level, staff, teachers, people that care.
People that care. People that care. That makes a huge difference. Right here,
Want to uplift some stuff from the chat,
okay?
and invite anybody if they want to speak, from online. But I have here, Safe Haven starts with administration. They have a duty to address and enforce equity issues. If they don't foster that and are not passionate about it, all of this means nothing. I have leadership sets the tone. I have, the stories hurt, but I know that they are true. It's all about communication and representation. Have good, consistent communication. I have a story here where it says, when my child has a teacher who cares deeply for him and treats him like their own, full staffing. And I feel like so many of these issues come up when positions are not filled. And then lastly, teachers that are compassionate to the environment that our kids come from. Just wanted to share some of the thoughts from online, because we have a whole community up here.
How many people online?
If anybody else wants to, go ahead.
One moment.
Oh, it doesn't.
Anybody else got any other thing? Yes? Relationships. Yeah, I agree with that. We say that every relationship takes on the height of the lesser committed. That you'll never go beyond the person that is the lesser committed. And so if you're not willing to communicate at a higher level, we're stuck at your level of communication. So it's important that if we want a better relationship, we all gotta step up and take it to another level. And it's unfortunate that when community says, hey, we got issues, we back in the district. It's the district. This is our city. What is the district? Is it a building? Like, what are we talking about? This is our city. And I'm passionate because I want to tell a Jewish Black story. I graduate from high school. I go see my guidance counselor. I get in the University of Florida on a music scholarship. My high school counselor, who is Jewish, she says to me, I recommend that you not go to a predominantly PWI. And I said, what are you talking about? I want to be a Florida Gator. She says, we send our children to our schools. I recommend that you go to a Black school. High school counselor. I think, Sean, you need to go to a Black school. Greatest advice ever given. I went, I saw teachers that looked like me, passionate, smart. I didn't even know it existed. I'd never been in a happy school environment that encouraged Black intellectual excellence. Like they expected you to learn, like no one talked down to you. Like violence, what are you talking about? They set the bar so high until you had to step up. For the first time in my life, I made the dean. And I kept making the dean. It was all environment, it was leadership. Changed my whole life. Doc back here, you know what I'm saying? You understand? And so we got HBCUs across this country. We can't find Black excellence. We got Black teachers right here. My mother was a single mother. You understand? But again, she would be offended to say that, her parenting skills were the reason why I wasn't, doing my best. She did the best she could.
Right.
And it's by the grace of God that I'm standing in front of you today. And that's why I'm so passionate, because I shouldn't be here. I should be incarcerated. My son, they said he was a gang member in the 3rd grade. We had to pull him out of the DeWitt school. We had to pull him out. They said he was like getting other kids together and they were bullying him. We pulled him out of school. They said he couldn't read. I said, this boy read the King James Version of the Bible. You know how hard that is? What did he do? We put him in a school where there were loving teachers, everything you're talking about. And he graduates with a double major from Michigan State University. Don't tell me that we can't do it. We can absolutely do it. Last question. Yes, sir.
You're talking about engagement. When we talk about engagement, that's what I'm talking about with enrollment of kids in athletic programs and other engaging things. When they're not engaged, they're disengaged. That's right. Are we talking about whether it be red, blue, yellow, black, white, whatever? People that can engage our children and make that happen. People that can engage and entice that child to stay in school. For example, right now in the state of Michigan, how many kids, babies do we have facing death by imprisonment under the age of 18? Why is that? Do your homework and you will find out they are attached to disengagement, opportunities that have been missed. having people that are actively involved in children's life. There's some people that naturally gravitate towards that. This man here engaging in the dream, whether you fall short or not, it is that dream that keeps you hooked. I was hooked myself, having watched my mother cut her wrists. My mother died at 75 last year. That's a blessing because when she cut her wrist, she was 30. Okay? So something happened along that way. And it was me at the edge of the bed that made her say, I won't try to leave you again. Okay? That engaged me, caused me to work with kids and do those things, caused me to, at whatever expense, speak out like now.
Yeah.
I have been retaliated against. I didn't speak about that because the most important thing at this time is to get other people engaged in taking care of our children. Our children, meaning whether you black, white, or whatever, is your child. When we educate, we're educating a child. Okay?
So let me ask this question. How did these stories impact you? Anybody want to share? Because what he's talking about, this level of engagement, that's what we're doing. We're not here to fight because nobody wins at a fight. He's babysitting. You had your hand up.
As I was listening to that stories from the adults, I couldn't help but reflect on the data that came out last March about how our Black children have been so systematically mistreated and thrown away and just downright dogged.
Absolutely.
And those generations, because this had to be going on for decades, didn't just start. How those generations of children, their futures, unless they was able to turn something around, and the parents that gave up and they're hopeless. And it was very overwhelming. I'm glad these two ladies are good therapists. It's overwhelming, except we can rise and take care of our children.
Yes, we can.
We can do this. I was a teen mom, you know, so being young or old is not the issue of being parents. But I didn't do it by myself.
None of us.
None of us do it. So the community, I mean, we've really talked about our Black children. We need, as the Black community, we need to get busy in the schools. Teachers would not be treating our girls 6.5, 4.5 more times worse than they do white girls if we were all over the place. You know, I remember
So I'm gonna have to cut you off. So again,
but
we talk about, if you haven't, when we're in these meetings, you can clearly hear an IRO when it starts coming out, an internalized racial what? Oppression. If you don't know, then like when we start talking, and what's the other flip side of IRO?
Internal racial superiority.
Can you just give us 30 seconds of that one?
IRS is the internalization that white people receive through our culture of sort of imbibing on the myth of difference and hierarchy from it, that there's a way that we're superior.
And so when we talk, oftentimes we kind of take on the burden, right? That it's our fault, and that's our internal racial oppression. And so we got to break out of that. So we blame parents, that's that our, that's not helpful. That's not a root cause. We're talking about racism and white supremacy. So what else did you hear as we end? I got about 10 minutes right here.
For me, it just reinforces the need to be organized, not mobilized, organized. And to be always on point, realizing that you can never stop. The battle continues, and you have to be ever present and working towards whatever change needs to be made. That's what it made me.
Absolutely. So we're gonna hand out these handbills. How many of y'all have the handbills? So he's gonna hand those out. You can hand those out. I appreciate it. What we are building is legislation that addresses these issues, that creates funding mechanisms, that creates all the things that we need to continue to build. We're not just having a discussion, we're just talking. We're building. And so the reason why we didn't want a rebuttal and we didn't want this kind of conversation, because we wanted you all to come as community members tonight and to listen what we hear on a daily basis. I wish you could sit in my office as a pastor and hear what his parents are saying, but I can't say that. I wish you could hear what the kids are saying in the youth ministry, what's happening in the schools, and where they're getting the weed from and who's selling them who's selling the weeds right in the high school. I wish I could tell you. I wish I could tell you. The one young lady that said, when I went to Oklahoma High School, that was the first time I saw a salad bar. Like, it was beautiful, it was laid out, like, it was like really intentional. Like, it sent a message that food was important. She was like, I didn't even realize that it was in my mind. Like, we talked to students. So when we talk about we're feeding kids, what are we feeding? I was at Luton doing mentoring. That food looked like puppy chop. And I told them, I said, my guys and my girls not gonna eat this food while we're here. So we bought food and brought it into the school. That food looked like dog food. I wouldn't eat it. I wouldn't let my children eat it. And that's just the truth. Now, whose problem that is? Fact of the matter is, every child is not eating that same puppy chop. So we want to build together. We can't be afraid to have hard conversations and to feel uncomfortable with truth. And so that's the reason why we're here tonight. I want to thank you for coming. We're passing out these handbills on the Breathe Act. Our next meeting will be continuing to build education justice and putting those pieces together. From the district, we want to say that you will get a letter from us, a follow-up letter with a list of demands and action items of accountability. And then we will have another meeting where we can actually sit down and talk about the data and with our educators and our administrators. So I want to thank everybody for coming tonight, and thank you for your time. The next meeting is the 4th Tuesday in November. The 4th Tuesday in November. See you soon. Same time, 6 days. That's good. That's good.